start to draw down, if we flatten the curve, that means we could get parts of the economy reopened because, again, the economy was healthy beforehand, which means we could get a quicker recovery.
And Danny, in terms of how markets are pricing the recovery, the impression I'm very much getting is that it's kind of leaning towards the V-shape more than anything. Is that starting to turn at all at the moment?
It definitely depends where you look. I'm always looking for the contrarian calls, so my eye is always sort of caught by those things that say doom and gloom. For one, when you look at the VIX, we have seen volatility start to come down, so there's a sign there that uncertainty perhaps is dissipating a bit. UBS says that the way that markets and equities are currently priced does imply that sort of V-shaped recovery. However, when you look at the dividend yield futures in the S&P 500 for December 2021, so that's more than a year out, they imply a 38% decline from the current levels. Of course, part of that is this idea that dividends are all of a sudden political, but it also says something about earnings. It says that earnings are going to get much worse from here, and they're going to continue to get worse until December of next year. That's certainly not a V-shaped recovery.
And what about the dividends and buybacks which are getting put on hold? I mean, how quickly, how much is that going to affect the way the market bounces back?
You know, this is something that, Nara, you and I know were discussing earlier this morning, a call from Tony Dwyer at Canaccord, who basically said that buybacks specifically, when you look at U.S. stocks, they contributed trillions of dollars to the recoveries from the bottom of 2008. This is one of the biggest buyers in the market when you have companies jumping in to buy back their own shares. So if all of a sudden we don't have that anymore, if we don't have this very crucial buyer, then the recovery is going to take a lot more time when it comes to equity markets because they are gone. So he says now is really the worst time that you could be demonizing buybacks.
Yeah, and this is before we even worked out whether we found the bottom yet. Thank you so much, Danny Berger. Great to have you with us. The Stock 600 now turning negative. We were seeing green on the screen earlier. We're down 0.2% after losses for equities yesterday of 2.9% in Europe. But US futures still firmly in the green, up at least 1.6% on NASDAQ, S&P and Dow futures. This is Bloomberg.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Witham offers private equity expertise to address the advisory, audit, and tax needs of your fund's portfolio companies.
Hi, I'm Bill Hageman, Witham's proud CEO. Witham's private equity specialists understand the unique challenges facing PE firms. We work hand in hand with sponsors and their portfolio companies to help maximize the value of their investments with our world-class advisory, audit, and tax solutions, and industry expertise in key growth sectors such as healthcare, manufacturing, and real estate.
Visit witham.com/PE for more information.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
London. Find Unlimited is here to brighten your day. Vodafone and Samsung are giving you the chance to win one of thousands of tech prizes all over the city, including the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G. Play from wherever you are. When we say the word, look for the Vodafone Unlimited symbol near you for your chance to win. Register now at findunlimited.co.uk.
This is a vital update from the government about coronavirus. To help save lives, stay at home. Anyone can spread coronavirus. Only leave your home for the following reasons: to shop for basic necessities, to pick up medicine or to provide care to those who need it, to exercise once a day, alone or with members of your household. Only travel to work when you absolutely cannot work from home. If you have to go out for any of these reasons, always stay 2 meters apart. Do not meet others outside your household, even friends and family. Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
It's Tune In Sports on this day, April 2nd, 2019. OKC guard Russell Westbrook becomes the second player in NBA history to have 20 points, 20 rebounds, and 20 assists in a game.
I heard it, 20 rebounds. There it is. 20, 20, 20, first time since 1968. And Wilt Chamberlain.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
On this week's On the Media, we are awash in messages, but some messengers are more effective than others.
Ventilators, ventilators, ventilators. We need 30,000.
Meanwhile, some media outlets choose not to air the president's press briefings live, and media critics ponder what's the right balance between good information and all information. All that and more on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
The sports world is full of inspirational stories of heroic figures. It also has its fair share of shady characters. Aaron Hernandez, Donald Sterling, Bikram Choudhury, O.J. Simpson. For detailed retellings of some of the darkest sagas in sports, search sports documentaries on the TuneIn app.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Is going to give an update
for the latest news from in and around the tri-state area.
New York's MTA says the coronavirus has decimated revenue.
Stay with Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Vatsal Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor, is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials. So taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Now, stocks are looking for direction today as investors continue to assess the economic impact of the coronavirus. The Stock 600 currently flat, the FTSE up just 0.3%, and the DAX down 0.2% in Frankfurt. So definitely a mixed bag here in the European first hour of trading. If we look at stock specifics, Dassault Systèmes has slipped more than 5% in Paris after saying its 2020 revenue guidance is now at risk. But looking ahead to the US Open, looking quite firm at the moment, set to gain 1.8%, all the major benchmarks there. Now, the real big story today is actually in the commodity markets, where we've seen oil surge on a report that China's planning to buy oil for its emergency reserves. That has sent Brent up more than 9%, currently at $27 a barrel. WTI at $22 a barrel, up almost 9% as well. Bear in mind that it was already higher after President Trump had said he would meet with Saudi Arabia and Russia in order to support the market. And that in turn is boosting commodity currencies, and the Norwegian kroner leading gains up 1.3%. The Aussie dollar also bid. The Bloomberg dollar spot index slightly lower this morning ahead of US jobless claims due out later. The yen also slightly weaker at 107.3, but sterling is bid up 0.4% at 124. In the bond markets, we are seeing 10-year Treasury yields up 2 basis points at 60 basis points this morning. 10-year bond yields also higher at negative 44. 10-year gilt yields at 33 basis points. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garens with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. There are signs that the worst may be over in the country at the epicenter of Europe's coronavirus crisis. The death rate is easing in Italy as growth in new cases indeed slows, while daily fatalities are still rising in Spain and Britain. The virus appears to be spreading more slowly in Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland and other countries. Pressure on hospital intensive care units is letting up in some of the hardest hit areas of Italy, including the province of Lombardy. South Africa's early attempts to curb the spread of coronavirus, including travel restrictions and forced quarantines and a ban on large gatherings, appears to be paying off. That's according to the health minister. The number of confirmed infections in the country rose to 1,380 on Wednesday, an increase of 27 from the day before. They have an average of just 42 new cases a day over the past 5 days. And the Wimbledon Championships have been cancelled for the first time since the Second World War. The tennis Grand Slam event will now take place over 2 weeks from June to July next year, and that's because of the coronavirus. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garens. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, thank you so much. Oh, you must have been devastated when you heard that yesterday.
I was actually devastated because every single year my summer begins officially with Wimbledon, and I do like to go and sit on Headman Hill or Murray Mount to watch all the sport. But I mean, there's lots of other sporting events which have been cancelled too, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Just got to stick to walking the dogs for now. Leanne Garens, thank you so much with the world news. And let's get back to the markets. Toby Gibb, Head of Investment Directing Equities at Fidelity International, joins us now down the line. Toby, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining. After the best week for the S&P 500 since 2009 last week, bulls might have been caught off guard a little by the last 2 days, where we saw a 6% drop in the US benchmark. Today, futures are pointing higher. We've been sort of flirting with the flat line in European equities. It's difficult to talk about fundamentals in the market right now. So what cues are you looking to for the next move for equity markets? Some are pointing to technicals like Fibonacci to find the range for the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's very difficult to look at fundamentals at the moment. You know, valuation typically doesn't tell us where the turning point is in the market, and I think, you know, for now, what's going to really be driving market performance is news flow around the coronavirus. So, you know, as we just heard, there have been some more positive sort of sounds over the last 24 hours around, you know, the cases in Italy, in Spain and in the UK. And so the market seems to be taking a positive cue from that. On top of that, the positive news coming from China around purchases of oil. So it's really going to be very much driven by news flow around the coronavirus. I think technicals certainly have an influence here, but I think we have to remember that at the moment liquidity is pretty limited. takes relatively small sort of trades to move the markets, and I think that's likely to continue for the time being.
Yeah, Toby, you're talking obviously about the medical evidence driving a lot of this, but the other side of it is the reaction from central banks and governments, the eye-watering numbers of amounts that are being put in, and today we're getting discussion in Europe. Seems to be a bit of a dispute in Europe, if anything, about the nature of the kind of support that we can expect to see there. But how much is this driving what's going on, and how much more do we need to see?
I think it's hugely important. So I think I think we've seen over the last couple of weeks, a big sort of pickup in terms of monetary stimulus. But I think what really matters is fiscal stimulus. So the massive package that has been announced in the US, but also in the UK, and I think there will be some debate as to the type of stimulus that will be provided in Europe. But I think given the scale and the economic impact of the coronavirus, but I guess specifically the shutdown, it's pretty evident that fiscal stimulus on a massive scale is going to be required to keep economies moving.
Toby, if what we get out of this crisis is not a V-shaped recovery, but something that looks more like a U, like an L, like a Nike swoosh, what sort of strategy do you take around equity markets? Do you want to avoid betting on directional moves, make relative value trades? Would you rather invest via options? Do you want to actually just stay on the sidelines altogether? What's the strategy?
I think it's looking increasingly likely that we don't see a V-shaped recovery. We see more like a U-shaped recovery. I think clearly there are positive signs coming out of China. China is returning to work and supply chains are up and running again, but the impact from a demand perspective is going to be very, very significant. So I think expectations for a V-shaped recovery, which actually seem to be what the markets were pricing in last week, I think are probably unfounded. I think the likely economic impact is more significant than that. So I think it's about understanding the individual company fundamentals, understanding which companies will be able to really survive in an environment where for many businesses demand will completely collapse, and there will be very, very significant impacts on cash flows. So for us it's about staying invested in the market, but really appreciating which companies do have the ability to withstand what's going to be a very difficult demand environment and a very difficult cash flow environment, and focusing on those. And also trying to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are being created, because clearly there are some companies that will do better out of this than others, and there have also been in what has been quite indiscriminate price action. There have been some areas of the market that have sold off more than others, and in some cases maybe not totally justified.
Now, Toby, there's been some interesting news in terms of dividends and buybacks. I mean, the latest Centrica suspending its dividend, but the buybacks and dividends action, is that going to make much difference, at least to the mood of the market?
I mean, it's a really interesting topic at the moment, and one where we're getting a lot of questions. I think we saw in the global financial crisis dividends cut by sort of 20% or thereabouts on average, and I think we're likely to see something similar. When you look at the European market, I think that the dividend yield now is essentially discounting about a 22-23% cut to dividends. So it has moved to price in quite a lot of that cut in dividends. I think given we were talking just now about fiscal stimulus. I think a lot of that fiscal stimulus, a lot of that fiscal support is going to come with caveats, and I think in many instances, as we're already seeing, one of those caveats will be not paying a dividend, or at least suspending a dividend for the short term. So I think it's going to be a very important topic to watch over the coming weeks.
Yeah, and Toby, earlier when you were saying there are certain companies that might look at opportunities where they've sold off more than they should, can you give us some examples of where those opportunities might be, and whether perhaps they even are in some of these companies that have had to suspend dividends and buybacks if the market has gone too far in discounting that?
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the price action, you saw in the big sell-off a couple of weeks ago a significant divergence in the valuation of the A and B shares of Royal Dutch Shell, for example, which was interesting. You saw for Stampo, the Nordic insurer, a sell-off there of sort of more than 40%, which was significantly more than some of its peers with very similar business models. And I think there are also some instances where quite significant sell-offs are justified. Some companies which in a normal sort of slowdown would be able to weather the storm quite well. Companies, for example, that run conferences and trade shows. But actually, in this particular slowdown, those conferences, those trade shows won't continue at all. They'll be completely shut down. So there are some instances, I think, where we really have to appreciate that this is a very different environment, a very different slowdown to anything we've seen previously.
Toby Gibb, Head of Investment Directing Equities at Fidelity. Thank you so much. European stocks are flat.
Have you discovered Disney Plus? Stream the latest blockbuster movies and most talked about series and documentaries. From Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, Disney, and National Geographic, all in one place. Enjoy exclusive originals you can't see anywhere else. Welcome to endless entertainment from just $5.99 a month. Disney Plus. Start streaming now. 18 plus subscription required. T's and C's apply.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
External pressure is going to be an opportunity for reform in China. I think liquidity more generally across financial markets is an issue and a concern.
The Spanish banks in particular are in a much better place than they were 5 years ago.
It wouldn't be great to have a drawn-out trade conflict with the US or indeed with anybody else.
I've never been one to prophesy where sterling will be, and you're a madman if you think you can.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe on Bloomberg Radio.
A very good morning from London. I'm Caroline Hebke.
And good morning from the Bloomberg Bureau in Berlin. I'm Matt Miller. You're listening to Daybreak Europe on London DAB Digital Radio. Chances are on London DAB Digital Radio, you could be listening in New York on Sirius XM. I guess, Caroline, people could be listening from anywhere in the world, frankly.
Yeah, including on your terminal, of course. But if you are listening here in the UK, I think the thing that you'll probably be focused on is the number of deaths that we've had in Britain. 563 people in a 24-hour period. So now we have more than 2,300 people who have died from the virus. NHS staff are barely being screened, though. So there's a lot of pressure on the government. And now 1 million people who've claimed universal credit, which is, the state benefit here. That's 10 times the usual amount that we get in a fortnight.
Yeah, over 1 million, right?
Yeah, exactly. We normally only get about 100,000, and it's all online now. So, yeah, lots of issues about how quickly it can be delivered. In terms of the markets this morning, Matt, let's take you to the European markets. Obviously, as Europe still struggles with the coronavirus outbreak, stock markets actually at the moment are pretty flat. We're just up by 0.2% on the US stock 600. The Xetra DAX also flat, but slightly higher. Really not that big a movement. US futures, though, have been much more positive, even though we had that big sell-off yesterday for all three main benchmarks in America, dropping 4.4%. So it wasn't a good start to the month. S&P 500 E-mini futures, though, now up by 1.8% at the moment. Asian equity markets also fairly mixed. Declines in Japan, gains in South Korea. As for the bond markets, 10-year treasuries hold steady at 60 basis points, just higher 1.5 basis points. The Fed really trying to stem that treasury selling. $100 billion of treasury sales in 3 weeks in March, and also brace, of course, for the £45 billion worth of gilts that are going to be sold here in the month of April. As for the FX space right now, Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index weaker 1/10%. The pound trades at 1 spot 24.09, so stronger 0.3%. The euro 1 spot 0.9, weaker 0.3%. And also the big gyrations in the oil markets. It leaves us with WTI crude futures at $22.17, up more than 9%. Brent crude 27.12. Matt.
All right, now the EU is finding it difficult to agree on a coordinated response to the coronavirus outbreak, despite infections nearing their peak in several countries. Governments are still at odds over how to cushion the economic impact of the pandemic, even amid worries and warnings that this could be the deepest recession since 2009, possibly even a Great Depression. For more, let's bring in Dean Turner. He's an economist at UBS Private Banking. And Dean, let me get first off your take on what the proper response would be. So many people outside of Germany are suggesting Corona bonds, some sort of shared debt. However, here in Berlin, you'll hear a lot of talk about why isn't the ESM enough?